Hello everyone, this is Direwolf20 and welcome to episode 4 of Direwolf20's Let's Play Satisfactory series, where today I'm going to clean up my iron production. So last episode we got a little bit fancier with our base. We set up some platforms and some very nice things as it relates to organization, right? Now this design is a little compact, right? It's a little tight. You don't want to go too compact in Satisfactory, but I'm going to leave it as it is because it's working for now. But this will probably get torn up and improved over time, right? I think that's probably the expectation that we should plan for. But now we've fully automated at least copper wires. I wouldn't mind getting cables automated as well. We might look into taking the copper ore that's being made here, turning them into 2 wires, and then those wires can also be turned into cables automatically. We might automate that soon, but for now what I want to focus on today is getting my iron production up and running in a little bit more of an efficient manner. So what I think I'd like to do is plan out where my whole thing's going to be. Like, where should I put things? And if I want a better perspective, what I think I could do is build a lookout tower. Hello, sir. How's it going? Whoosh. We can climb on up here and get a nice perspective on some things. So this is the terrain that we have to work with, right? We've got that whole platform up there that we started with our copper mining. We've got the 1-2 iron veins right there. Bing. Right, but we've also got a couple iron veins right there as well. It looks like, are there 3 of them there? There might be 3 iron veins right there, in addition to these 2. And these are impure. I'm curious what those 3 are. They might be better. You know, there's also some more iron off in that direction, it looks like, as well. So iron's not too rare. We'll be finding more and more of that as time goes by. You might also notice from this perspective, there are some, what appears to be other biomes out there, which we'll be taking a look at in time. Don't worry. There's a very, very large world here to explore. We've only scratched the surface of what this game has to offer. Like, just barely. There's a lot. But what I'm thinking is, a big thing is there's this big cliff here, right? Like, right along here, that separates this Y level, if you will, this ground. And there's another cliffish type thing here. So we either want to expand this platform out a bit so that everything's kind of on the same level kind of deal, and the miners always have to be right on top of their mines, so we'll have to have these guys recessed in the platform, you know, or we could kind of have a platformy area, you know, overlaying on top of this section. So I'm kind of just in my brain thinking about how I want to lay everything out. Like, do I want to bring this platform out so everything's kind of at this top Y level here? That might not be a terrible idea. And that'll give us a lot of space. That'll also, of course, require quite a lot of these guys. Now, luckily, we can build them from pretty good distance away. How cool is that? Nice, right? Now, I might have misplaced that guy. It doesn't matter. I'll fix it later. I think he went... You gotta be careful with your snapping. What I gotta do is get the smart mod installed, and that will make my life a lot easier. I think Smart just came out with like a beta-ish version, but I'm hesitant to go grab it just yet. Though I might. Especially if I'm gonna be building lots of foundations today, right? So that's one approach we could take, right? So that everything's kind of nice and flat and ready to go. Now you'll notice that sometimes, I think we pulled it off. So yeah, we're actually at a decent level here. But as you can see with me placing things underneath, sometimes you'll build into the ground. And that's just, you know, how it works, right? Sometimes you'll get something like that little rock there peeking out. We can remove those eventually. So we'll deal with that in time. So do I want to kind of continue building off of this structure, right? And what I could do is kind of face my iron ore production in this direction. So kind of everything branches out that way. And we could work on this Y level that we have right here, where everything's kind of branching off that way, and we'll just, you know, have all our automation for our tier 1 iron resources going in that direction. And then down there, we might have another batch of resources that we're going to be looking at, right? There's like a nice big area here that we'll probably wind up, you know, building off of. That's kind of a rough idea of a plan, and I feel like that works. We'll have to see. So now, as a reminder, you can easily just dismantle your lookout tower, and boom, nice and cleaned up. So what I think I should do next is shut down this miner operation, right? And I can get rid of the conveyor belts, I can get rid of you, I can get rid of you. I noticed in the latest update it's a little sometimes hard to target your conveyor belts. Not that big of a deal, though. I'm going to take all this stuff out of here. I'm going to shut this guy down, right? And we can now easily just redo everything we've been working towards, right? I'm going to bring this power line over-ish to here for now, just to keep him up and running, but we will fix that. But that way, at least our copper production will continue to run over there. Not a big deal. What I'd also like to do is grab a equipment workshop. Now, how did that even happen? Did I just build it on my head? Is that what happened? It's kind of funny. And we want a portable miner. And we should have 2 of those now, if I'm not mistaken. 1, 2. So we can build our 2 miners. And I'm thinking the miner facing that way kind of makes the most sense. Now, a little my foundation here is going to encroach on that miner location, so we'll have to see. But remember, middle click to copy a building, and then boom. That feels pretty good. Right? I like that. Doom. And everybody's up and running. Boom. Our miners start digging. That looks super cool. All doing it. Get to work, miners. Gotta love how cool all the buildings look in this game. I really do like that. It looks super neat. Alright, so now that they're up and running and processing iron ore again, and as a reminder, you're gonna get, sometimes when you dismantle things, a lot of iron ore. Don't be afraid to void it. It's okay to void it. It's literally an infinite resource. If it's clogging up your inventory, just void it. Does it spark joy? No. Then void it. Okay. So I'm going to try and, you know, build platforms relatively in an intelligible way. But obviously just a way based on how much space the miners take up, right? We're not going to be able to super get this going as tight as you might want, but I think that feels pretty good. How do we feel about that? How does that look? You know, like we can't completely fill this in because the miners are taking up space. But it's not I might be able to sneak one in here. Yeah, it looks like it's still encroaching. You can see that red outline. So I think it's still encroaching. Yeah, on the miner there. So that's going to be a bummer. But I could at least, you know, put my power line up top here. And that would be cool. Right? And we might want to use... Unfortunately, it looks like you're aligned in a very particular way. Let's see, will I be able to get my vertical logistics up here? Let's find out. So vertical logistics are cool. I can do something like this. So you're encroaching on some clearance there. You're probably encroaching on these guys, right? And what I'll usually do is I will put this around maybe number 9 would be cool. Yeah, I like that for now. So the vertical conveyors are neat. Basically, you can connect them to either a building or an existing conveyor line, and we can bring them up like this. Now, unfortunately, that means that you're encroaching, which is a bummer. Not the end of the world, though. The dire belting has already started. How's that look? And then we can bring a conveyor belt, like, right about here. And that's how vertical conveyors work. Pretty cool, right? And vertical conveyors for each tier will always carry the same amount as their tier. So this guy does 60 resources per minute. You can see over on the info tab over here. Same for the vertical conveyor belt. So they'll always move the same amount of resources as their tier. So a tier 2 conveyor belt does 120 resources per minute. A tier 2 lift will also do 120 resources per minute. Cool? Now what about over here? Am I going to be able to sneak this in? I think I can sneak this one in at least. He's going to be a little wobbly, but not terrible. That looks good. That looks good. And there is a limit to how high the vertical lifts can go. It's pretty good, though. So they can actually go quite tall. But you can also always, if you wanted to, like I'll just demonstrate this real quick. Let's see, what would be a good way to do this? You can go like all the way up. And then you can tap right into that. And those things are connected now. Cool. So just a little tutorial there on how vertical lifts work. Cool. Now everything has shut down and gotten quiet because we've backstuffed, right? We've filled all that in. Now these guys are really low production, these miners. They're only producing 30 iron ore per minute, which is a paltry amount. A paltry amount. But we're going to have to see what we can see about that. So how do I want to line these guys up in a intelligible way is kind of the question I'm going to have here in a moment. So you guys are all chilling. So we could have, if we wanted to, a smelter. Let's check this out. That relatively well lines up. And remember, orange is your input. Right? And you can do iron, and that'll do 30 per minute, right? And if we wanted to... I'm trying to be semi-space conscious, but not too crazy with it. Right? So what we could do is just have a little... Hey, that feels pretty nice, right? Does that feel pretty nice? There's another thing we could do if we wanted to be fancy. Let's try this. Just for fun. Just to show you guys how nifty you can be with these vertical belts. You can also rotate the output so that it's a 90-degree line from the input. Or, you know, completely all around. So what we could do is something like this. And you might notice as I'm placing the belts here, I can turn them, right? And that's with your mouse wheel as a quick little tip. So the trick there is when you're placing the belt, you can use your mouse wheel to, you know, turn the output a little bit, and that allows for some nifty designs, right? So I feel like that looks pretty good. I like that quite a bit, right? And then you can also be designated as iron ingot. I'm going to bring the power line over to here. You're going to power this dude and this dude, okay? And then we can build out, right? Now in the vanilla game of Satisfactory, base game, there's one platform at a time that you can build, as I mentioned. However, there's also a mod, which we'll be looking at very soon. May add it for next episode, we'll see. I haven't quite decided when I'm going to get it added, but sooner than later, to automate things a little bit better. Now, what I think I'd like to do is make sure there's enough space here, but I want to do one of these making iron rods, and one of them making iron plates, right? Now, for crafting purposes, we should get a craft bench here temporarily, just so I can make myself some more cables. And I should probably also make a handful more of those stamped plate things. And I'm gonna, while I'm in here, void some junk I don't need, right? So let's do some more screws, so I can make reinforced plates. Because one of the things I'm gonna want to do very soon is automate reinforced plates. I think that would be a good move for us to do, and that should be cool. Because reinforced plates is something we're going to need a lot of very quickly. Okay, so what I'm thinking is, if this guy was making iron rods, and again, the math is important here. So this guy takes 30 iron ore per minute and makes 30 iron ingots per minute. This takes 15 iron ingots per minute to make 15 iron rods per minute, which means we can have 2 constructors making iron rods at a time, and that's what's up. So we can run the conveyor belt here. We can throw the... I like to have my splitter on number 7 usually. So we can throw the splitter here. I don't like that. Maybe I'll put the splitter in first, just so everything's nice and tidy. Right, so we'll do our splitter here-ish. Remember, orange is input, right? So you into the splitter. And that feels pretty good, right? I like that. And then you're both iron rods. And then we just need to get some power over here. Boom. And boom. And now those 2 are producing iron rods for me. Nice. And then what I'm going to do is have another constructor right about here. Orange input. And see how important it is to pay attention to those grid lines? So the snapping lines, we can see on the right, it's lined up with the constructor next to it. The lines coming towards me are lined up to the smelter behind me. So I know that when I place this, I'm going to have a very nice and straight conveyor line directly in to make iron plates, which are 30 iron ingots per minute, make 20 iron plates per minute. So the 30 iron ingots that we're using and making over here are all being used perfectly over here, right? So pay attention to those numbers as you're building, because it's an important way to know if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. Okay? So that's pretty cool. Now what I'm going to do is probably have a little bit more, and we're probably running out of space here. Well, we're running out of concrete for constructing. Oh yeah, little pro tip. You can, if you hit the C button on your keyboard, you'll start sliding. And if you jump at the end of the slide, you get a little bit of extra air. Sometimes you make a little damage if you jump too far, but that's what's up. Also, those of you who played Update 3 might have noticed a little change here. Concrete used to stack up to 200. I think it stacks up to 500 now, which is awesome. It means you can bring way more concrete out for building when you're exploring, which is, you know, when we get to that point, that's going to be super nice. But look, it's up. I've got 417 concrete in a single stack. That's vanilla change that happened in Update 4, I believe. I'm hearing a monster. Oh, there he is. I knew I heard him. Get back here, you. Boom. That's what's up. Eat a little berry. Always have this thing ready to go to zap those monsters who want to attack you. Whee! So how's this little initial foundation looking? I feel like it looks pretty good. Call me crazy. Call me crazy, but I think it looks pretty good. I'm just gonna make sure that there's, you know, a little bit of extra spacing out here. There's no falling, so you can literally, you know, run these foundations as far out as you want. You don't have to worry about, you know, supporting them underneath. However, there are structures you can get in the future that will allow you to place things. All right, so I turned on my flashlight because it's starting to become nighttime here. Hopefully it's not. A few people have said it's a little bit dark on the video, so you know that's what's up, I guess. nothing you can do about. I think there's not much I can do about that. There might be a mod that gives me full-time daylight, and I might go ahead and grab that just on account of the fact that it would make YouTube viewing a little bit better for you guys. So I think if I hit 7 here and bring up my splitter, I can switch it to a merger by holding E. That's also a new feature, which I love. And remember, blue is your output, so make sure the blue face, you know, is doing that. How do we feel about this? Yeah, that's what's up. And then I'm going to have the orange here. We want it lined up to that guy, and then also lined up there. And so with those green lines that helped me, I can easily tell that that's in line with my constructor. And now the plates are coming out that way. So let's get a nice overview of everything I just built from up above, right? Just so we can get a good idea of how this looks. And hopefully it's visible-ish on the YouTubes. So I've got the 2 miners doing 30 each, right? The smelters are doing 30 each, so 1 smelter per miner. And then we've got 2 things making rods and 1 thing making plates. And then we're storing them in storage containers so that I can pop down there and, you know, get what I need. Cool. And then I can grab you. I can grab you. And that's pretty cool beans, right? I like it. Now, I've got a couple iron ingots in my inventory just by virtue of the fact that I, you know, cleaned up the smelters earlier. You don't have to. Like I said, don't be afraid to void them, but I think off camera real quick, I'm just going to craft them into plates and bars. I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I'm going to say that things are going well, except I just ran out of power. That's okay. In between the cuts there, I ran around and cut down a lot of trees that are around, so if you notice a lot of missing trees, you'll know why. And I made myself a huge amount of biofuel, which is cool. So I'm going to populate all of these guys, and I feel like it might also... What do we got here? You? I think it might not be a bad idea to throw another biomass burner down. Just to add a little bit more biofuel, and now we're in really good shape. Boom. Everything's back up and running. So you can see we max consumptioned so far at 69 megawatts. Remember, we had 70 production. So we actually ran out of fuel in this burner, and that's why our power clipped. But we are exceedingly close to hitting that 70 point, which is why I wanted to place down another burner and get us up to 100, effectively. So what I'm going to do now real quick is I'd like to automate cables, because that's another thing that we're going to want a lot of. So I've prepared in advance. Remember last episode we set up the splitter here right towards the end, and we set up our copper line, right? What I'd like to do is kind of mirror this layout. And we will make you guys both do wires and wires. Cool? And I'm going to tap into, I guess I'll tap into this one. Is there a sneaky spot I can put this that fits? I'd really like to not be clipping into a belt though, because that looks kind of ugly. Cool. Now you'll notice that we're making 30 wires per minute in each of these for a total of 60. Now it just so happens, can't afford, because we're out of those things that we're trying to make right now. It just so happens, I checked this a minute ago before I started recording this segment, that we need 60 wires per minute, or yeah, in a constructor to have a steady amount of income, right? So if the way to check that is just come over here and hit cables, and you'll see that by default, it's 60 wires per minute will make 30 cables per minute. So that's basically what we want to do. Now, I'd kind of like this to be somewhat lined up. So I'm going to try and line him up nicely, like so. And then we can go here, do our splitter, but change it to a merger. And we'll do something like that. And let's just see if our belts line up nicely. I mean, it looks like they do, right? It's looking pretty good. So you're going to be buddy cables. And I always pull a power line over just in case. because, reminder, power lines can only connect to technically 2 buildings at a time, because you want one for the wire coming in to supply power to the power line, one to connect this power line to another power line sometimes. So, you know, technically 3 buildings at once, really, but usually 2 is where you want to be, right? And then we can throw down our storage container here. Boop, boop. I nudged that just a little bit. It got a little bit moved. Remember, you can hold control and it like keeps the snapping a little bit better. So if you want to ensure your snapping is set up correctly, holding control is the way to go. But hey, that gets us cables fully automated. Nice. So we've got a lot of copper wires coming in. We've got a lot of cables. We've pretty much automated almost everything that's a tier 1 resource at this point off of things. And I think now might be the best time to look into doing part assembly as a milestone. We haven't automated screws yet, and we should probably consider doing that. But we're going to want to talk about whether that's a thing we want to do or not. So a lot of these things we do have automated. Some of them not as much, right? What I'm probably going to do is, how should we handle this? So now we're heading an impasse, right? Because soon we're going to need a lot of screws. My next major goal, my next major task is I would like to fully automate making these things, the reinforced iron plates. So what we're going to have to do is, over on our iron production line, we're going to need to turn those iron bars that we're producing into screws, and then combine the screws with the plates. And we're probably going to go with a very simple and basic approach to that right away, and then we will expand it more efficiently later, right? And I think that's kind of the approach we're going to want to take. So let's grab all of you guys. That looks cool. And I'm going to grab a stack of that 500-ish there. And let's start looking at screws, right? Because I don't know exactly how many of these are we making in a minute. So we're making 15 per minute here. We're making 15 per minute here for a total of 30 per minute, right? Now, if we're going to manually craft screws in a constructor, and again, just place it down to check, we need 10 rods per minute to make 40 screws per minute. So that seems not bad, though we might need more than 40 screws per minute, so we'll figure that out, right? So let's start with, I'm going to grab a bunch of those, and I'm going to make sure I have enough of these, boom, 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 for the hand-in to make part assembly a reality, right? Whee. So let's come over here, let's hand in everything we need to hand in, right? And then 500 screws that I'll make real quick off camera. Alright guys, so that is a little over 500 screws ready to go for part assembly. Da-da-dun!
Milestone reached. More complex assembly of parts can now be automated. Project assembly parts can now be constructed and sent up via the space elevator. Note: project parts are too complex to produce by hand.
Alright, so that unlocked a few things for me, right? Most importantly, what that unlocked was the assembler, which combines 2 parts into a new part, just like the reinforced plates here, right? So everything we've automated so far has been 1 part at a time. We've now got access to this dude, right? It also unlocked a few other important little prerequisite components. So it gave us copper sheets, which we're going to be using for pipelines in the future. It gave us rotors, modular frames, which are both used for building stuff. And then it gave me smart plating, which is the first project part. The project part is what's going to be used to unlock future tiers. And just like Ada said, smart plating cannot be made by hand. So we can't manually craft smart plating. We must automate it in an assembler. Cool? So let's go check out the assembler first and foremost. Now I'm pretty sure the assembler is going to need a few things, right? If we take a look over here at the assembler, we'll notice that we need smart plating, as it shows here on the assembler, but we also need rotors. By the way, a little tip, you can hit the little plus button up here, add assembler to to-do list, and it'll save on the top right over here. You can have as many as you want. So if I want 4 or 5 assemblers, you can do that. Pretty nifty. So you can see over here on the right, I've got the 8 reinforced plates I need. I don't have the 4 rotors I need, though. So let's make some. Rotors require a hefty amount of screws. So we're going to want to automate all these. We're going to want to automate modular frames. We're going to want to automate reinforced iron plates. We're going to want to automate rotors. These are all important things to automate, which we will absolutely be getting to shortly. But first, I just want to show you the assembler, make the first couple of them, and then we'll kind of transition from there into some more better automations. So boom, there's your 4 rotors. Check, 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 right? How cool is that? Now I think when I place it, will it? Yes, it removed it from my to-do list over on the right. How cool is that? Right? And now here's your assembler, right? So the assembler is a slightly larger machine. It requires more power, by the way, but you'll see it has 1 output side and 2 inputs because it's going to accept 2 items in to create 1 item out. Okay? So if we want to start with reinforced plates, in order to get reinforced plates going properly at full speed, and you don't have to do this, you don't have to match the full speed, but we would need 30 plates per minute, and we will need 60 screws per minute. Now, we know that we're currently making 20 plates per minute over there, and we've kind of maxed out our iron production thus far. Remember, we have 3 more iron nodes way over there in the distance, so I can absolutely bring more iron up here, and absolutely will be in the very near future. But I just wanted you guys to keep that little note in mind, where we're at now versus where we're gonna be, right? But this will allow us to do that. And then also 60 screws per minute is what we would need. Reminder that we found we were making 40 screws per minute by default. So we're gonna wanna consider, how that's going to play in. So we have 2 options right now. We can either A, take the components that we're crafting here and start using them to make the tier 2 materials that all need to be in the assembler. And as a reminder, your tier 2 materials are as follows. We've got the reinforced iron plates, we've got the modular frames, both of which are going to be pretty important. We've got the rotors, which we're going to have to craft, and the smart plating, which, spoiler alert, is reinforced iron plates plus rotors. So we're going to need to do a lot, right? We're going to need to make reinforced iron plates with iron plates and screws coming from bars, right? And then the rotors come from the iron bars and screws. And so there's a lot to combine to get smart plating. But once we get smart plating going, we'll be able to progress further into the game. So it's a good wrapping up point for the episode. I feel like we've automated a lot of our tier 1. So we could either tap into these guys to get things going, or what we could do is we could bring the iron up from all the way over there. We could start bringing up a new batch of iron and try to clean things up a little bit nicely, right? We could have another set of smelters extending out in that direction for iron, right? We could bring the iron up from there. We could just run some conveyor belts up here to get a lot of iron coming in. And then that might be a cool approach to some stuff. What do you guys think about that? Does that sound neat? I feel like that might be neat. And then that would be a cool way to get another batch of things. And then what we would have is we would have all our very small amount of iron coming in, making just the tier 1 materials like we already have. We don't change this or use these, and these will start storing for me to use in the future. But then in addition, we'll have another batch of iron coming in for all the other tier 2 materials. I like that, and I feel like that's how I'm going to do it. So we're going to want to expand out our concrete platforms here so that we have a lot more space. We will bring iron up from all the way over there up to here. We'll throw down some smelters, we'll throw down some more assemblers and some constructors and all that stuff. Next episode, we'll start working on some of those things. For now, it's wrapping up point, though. We do want to move this onto our platform at some point, so we'll move our hub in a moment. And that'll be obviously a destructive move because we got to, we'll have to shut down the power for that move, but that's not a big deal. Yeah, I think that all sounds pretty good to me. All right, wrapping up point for the episode. Darryl20 signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will come back next time and tweak that stuff. All right, guys, take it easy.